This is my favourite car, a Honda Beat K car that I bought from a scrap auction site, repaired for as cheap as possible, and then modified. I've been driving it around for the last 6 months, loving it, but I never truly finished it. There are still parts broken and bent from when a truck crashed into the back of it, so today I'm going to repair all of the broken parts and modify it with some incredibly special parts that mean more to me than any other car I've worked on. So the first thing we're going to fix on this car is the suspension. There's not actually anything wrong with it, but since I fitted these Wed Sport TC05 wheels, which are my dream Honda Beat wheels, this bit here won't do. It needs to be lower. But to do that, there's a problem. Getting any Honda Beat parts is nearly impossible. It's actually the reason that this car was written off. After it was hit, they couldn't find any parts to repair it, so they sent it to the scrapyard. And upgrades are the same story. There are no UK suppliers who have coilovers for the Beat, except for BC Racing. So I went out and ordered a set. As I said, there is no way to get a set of coilovers quickly if you have a Honda Beat. You are waiting for them from Japan no matter what. Thank you very much, BC, as always. I know you guys think it's a bit of a joke at this point, but they genuinely are the only people that will consistently have the coilovers you need in a really good quality. They are the go-to for a reason. This car needs to be lower. It doesn't sit nicely yet, and my biggest thing is fitment. So we've got to get these in, make it look nicer. The BC Racing coilovers come with their own top mount here, which is the part that mounts to the car. Not all coilovers will have these, which is a pain because then you need to compress the springs to take the tension off, remove the old top hats, and swap them all over to the new coilovers. For us though, because we have the new top mounts included, it goes straight on. The Honda Beat is incredibly simple too, so all we need to do is pull the old struts out by removing the wheel first, then the drop links, which revealed a blown out ball joint, something I will need to fix. Then I pulled the bottom suspension bolt, then the top suspension bolts, which are under the reverse mounted bonnet, and out the whole thing comes. Right, the fronts are in. They were so quick and so easy, in fact, that I even timed this side. I didn't by any means rush. I'm not an expert at all. I'm an idiot, and it took me less than 10 minutes to do this front. That is the beauty of working on K cars and old Japanese cars. Coilovers, it's very easy. So we're gonna head on over to the back, hope that there are no more issues. Get the wheels on, we're going to see what this looks like on the floor. The rear was a little trickier, requiring the bottom strut to be hammered out on both sides to get it free. But in the end, the new struts went in, giving us a chance to mess with the Beat's camber. Camber adjusted, I put the car on the floor to see if our fitment was improved. Right, it is the moment of truth to see how much lower the Beat is. I've put some rubber blocks under it, as you might see, because the car might be so low that the arms from the lift would stop it from sitting as low as it should be. So this is just to show us where it should go. Ooh, the rear's nice. Oh, that might be perfect. That huge gap from the rear arch, that's now gone. That's a massive improvement. And then the front arch, that could come down a little bit more, but there's an issue for me. This car, even before I'd lowered it, you can see there, it's been rubbing. The arch, when it goes over a corner, rubs on the tyre and creates that. So I'm hoping that the camber that we've added might help that. You can already see there's a bit of negative camber on there that should help stop the rubbing. But if the coilovers don't solve it and I do keep on rubbing, I have a solution. It requires driving quite far away and spending quite a lot of money. Cut to where I'm inevitably doing that.
This is a quick reminder that if you are buying a used car, you should always run a car vertical check.
That's right, because every single day hundreds of cars get crashed, but some of them get put back on the road in an attempt to hide their shady past. But with a car vertical check, you can find out that dodgy history.
All you need is a number plate or a VIN, and then the car vertical report will tell you if that car has been crashed, stolen, or clocked.
Now, we already know that my Honda Beat's crashed, but here is another small car. This is our micro car, and when you run it on car vertical, it does come back with green ticks for odometer, finance, and damage. So if you want to buy it, you'd know you'd be fine, but you can't buy it though, it's ours.
Now, this Porsche 944 has 2 yellow markers, and if we click on the mileage, we can see that this vehicle has a fake mileage, and if we scroll down to the graph, we can see it's up to like 200,000 miles, but if we scroll along, that suddenly drops from 218,000 miles to 162,000 miles. Now, someone may try to roll back the mileage, especially on an older car like this, to make it worth a hell of a lot more. With a car vertical report, you can find out this dodgy history.
So, if you're you're ever buying a car, van, motorbike, or a really very small car, make sure that you're on a Car Vertical check to make sure that the price you pay for it matches its history.
And as an added bonus, Car Vertical are offering you guys 20% off when you use our code 2DC.
Now that the car was sitting right, I needed to take a trip a few hours away to meet someone who had an incredibly special car, which is the entire reason that I bought my Honda Beat. Right, I'm here with Latham. Latham, nice to see you again. And I say again because Latham and this car are very special to me. That sounds weird. You're very special to me.
Yeah.
Because this car is the car I sat in when I was 18 years old at the Maguire's barbecue. We met. Here we are, fast forward. The Beat looks a bit different, I'll be honest. But not until just a few days ago. Part of the reason that we're here tonight is because Latham put up a post saying, who wants to buy this car? And if no one buys it, I'm breaking it for parts.
Yeah.
And so I immediately sent you a message saying, hey, remember me? I was a child when I looked at this car.
I think it's like a groomed you.
Yeah. Hey man, listen, if it means I get some parts out of it, I'm fine by it. I'm taking the T37s, they are for sure, because they are the wheel for a Beat. Now, if you're not into Beats, you may not be a Beat aficionado, this might just look like a pile of bumpers, but...
That's a Mugen kit for a Beat. I don't know, I think it always looks a bit nicer.
These bumpers are the hallowed set for like a Beat. They are the most sought after kit, you know, unless someone wants aftermarket like an RS Mac or something.
Yeah.
But when it comes to most owners, they want this kit.
Yeah.
And then behind it is something really special, because something really cool.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell the story on that?
When I was building this, I kind of like chasing lightness, because it's already quite a light car anyway. They're 760 kilos factory. Being an engineer, I was always kind of like, I can get that number lower. So I went looking for a titanium like silencer, and that one popped up, and that one's off a Cessna light aircraft.
An airplane exhaust.
Yeah, that's rated. I think that's FIA rated for flight. The good thing about Honda is, even a car like this, it's parts bin stuff. So you can fit S2000 brakes on this, you can fit MSX brakes on this, you can fit any brakes you like on pretty much any Honda within sort of reason of that era. So anything 90s, early 2000s. So the fronts are off a Honda Jazz, and the rears are, and those are off an EP2 Civic.
That is the beauty of Honda stuff.
Yeah,
it's all parts B. You can all just, you know, chop and change.
Yeah, exactly that.
So yeah, I'm going to take those brakes as well, because that is something mine also needs. And then also one of the rear lights, and then also a boot lid, which mine is bent, as I explained to you, that mine got crashed into. So basically, from your car, I will have my car fully back to standard and fixed. So yes, a massive thank you to Latham for basically giving me first dibs. So again, thank you very much. I'm going to get you paid, we're going to get them loaded in the car, and we can get them fitted in the rest of this video. The issue is that I dropped all of the parts off at home, not the unit. So instead of being able to use my daily driver to transport the body kit to the unit, I had to use the Beat, which looked like this. So we have a lot of parts to fit from Latham, but the first one I want to do is the exhaust. You see, the owner before me had a broken exhaust, so he bought the only one that he could find that would arrive before his next yearly inspection, and because of that, it is incredibly loud. So I've pulled out the old sound level meter that we used on our hot hatches, because I want to check how loud it is at idle. When I'm driving this car, especially on the motorway, I have to wear headphones because the drone is so bad. So hopefully his airplane exhaust that he built is going to be a bit quieter. So let's test it out. We're at about 74 decibels on idle. I'm going to give it a rev, and we're going to see what it's like under revs. Now, I didn't see what that number was, but I can guarantee you it's far too much, especially if I ever want to take this car on a track, which I very much do. So we're going to install his exhaust first. We'll maybe also take the body kit off at the same time and fit his body kit, although it is going to be definitely a different color. So we're going to be mismatching for a while, but let's start tearing it apart. Right, with the car now in the air, it's a bit easier to explain the exhaust system. You have this part, just this small part here, which you'd commonly refer to as the back box. This is what broke on the old owner's car, so he replaced it with this very short and not very muffling muffler. But behind it, you have the actual section that goes up onto the engine itself, otherwise known as this part here, or a header. So we're replacing both the header that goes onto the engine and the exhaust back box for a whole new system which should be more efficient but also much more quiet. I started by absolutely drenching every exhaust bolt in penetrant. They go through some of the toughest heat cycles, so they're prone to snapping. And there was one set of nuts that I really didn't want to share. So with the main parts of the exhaust off and the heat shield off, you are now able to see the bolts that hold the actual manifold to the engine. Now, we've already had to use this guy, the blowtorch, quite a lot so far, and we're gonna have to use it again because the other bolts, if they snap, it's okay, but if you snap a stud, which is unlikely, but a stud going into the engine block, then it's tough times. So we're gonna heat them up, go slowly, see if we can get these removed to get the header down. All right, last little nut on this. I'm praying that the heat shield on the top isn't gonna stop us from getting this out. Oh. And there we go. One Honda Beat exhaust manifold. Now, as I mentioned before, to get Beat parts in the UK is very difficult. If you look up here, our exhaust manifold gaskets aren't in the best of condition. It would be very smart to replace them with new ones. However, to get just exhaust manifold gaskets over, I had a quick look and it looks like it's going to take me about a week and a half. So this car will be stuck on the lift in that time. Yes, I would have been much smarter to order that 2 weeks ago, but I'm an idiot, so here we are. So we're gonna have to reuse the gaskets, but I think we should be okay. So here is our original exhaust manifold. Dilly little guy, and then we have another piece here, and then our back box. However, as I said, Beat parts are very hard to find in the UK. So Latham, instead of waiting for parts to come from Japan, simply made his own. So this is a custom made manifold. It comes from basically an original manifold flange, welded into a one-piece pipe that goes all the way to the muffler. So we're gonna swap this out, stick it in. He's even welded in a little bung here for the O2 sensor. So proper job on this. We'll throw it in. Can't wait to make the sound. Can't wait to make the sound. What does that mean? Tight. Done. Now I'm still missing a bracket on this side that has broken off, but it'll do for now. We'll do a quick startup test and see if we've lost any decibels, which is the biggest aim. Also, I know we've lost the can of Japan and we've got a kind of dumb space here, but once the new bumper goes on, it's gonna look a lot better and make a lot more sense. But this doesn't make as much noise, we're winning. This is how little the Beat weighs. You have to put your own body weight on to get the lift to come down quicker. Right, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if we've made this thing any quieter. I won't be able to see the numbers, but I'm sure I'll be able to hear pretty quickly. That is already a massive improvement. Somehow, it wasn't a massive improvement. I don't know if I was closer than before, but the idle test was actually louder than before, despite sounding much quieter. However, under revs, which is where you spend most of the time in this car, there were some big improvements. Feeling like a new man after for once in my life actually making a car quieter, I moved on to the body kit, which started with a front bumper, which, because this is a literal toy car, is held on with 4 clips and a piece of tape. So with just 4 or 5 bolts, the whole front bumper should in theory now come straight off. Now that was easy, but getting the new bumper on, that's a bit more of an issue. I'll explain now. Now the first thing you'll notice about the new kit is that it is a completely different colour. Latham's car was wrapped in a different type of red. So yes, for a good while, we are going to be two-tone on the Honda Beat. But the bigger issue here is that this is still technically an aftermarket bumper. You see, in Japan, they love to make body kits in the 90s, and this one was made by Mugen, who is as close to a factory tuning company as you can really get. Think of them like 80s AMG. The factory knows of them, they work together on lots of stuff, and there was a Mugen Beat that you could buy. But that doesn't change the fact that this body kit is still aftermarket in Japan in the 90s. So unlike this that has fixtures and tabs and fittings all over it, our new one is simply just a piece of fiberglass with some holes drilled in to allow us to mount it. So fitting this might be somewhat of an issue. So we're going to see what it looks like on there. Yes, it's a completely different color. Don't worry, I know. This car's not going to be staying red forever. That's why I don't mind it. So on the original bumper, you can see that it mounts through there into the bumper. But on this one, there isn't anything there. So we're going to have to work out a way of mounting something through the top to secure that in and under the light where it needs to be. The joys of aftermarket parts. I quickly realised I was working on a Japanese car though, so I broke out the cable ties. With the sides tight, I finally needed to mount the bottom of the bumper, which required me to drill through the incredibly rare and quite expensive bumper, something that I wasn't that excited for. You should wear protection when working with fiberglass, but, you know, call me Nakai-san, the way that I'm working with fiberglass and I've got no clue what I'm doing. Expert fiberglass work finished, I buttoned up my install and got the car back down to see how the rare Mugen kit had changed the look of the front. The colour match is even worse than I had anticipated, but overall I'm still super happy with the Mugen bumper. It looks so much better than the original. No need for the lip at the bottom, it just sits how a beat is supposed to sit. Now the front bumper looks much better, but that's not actually where the issue is. You see, the front of the car was never the problem. The rear of the car is where the damage happened when this car was written off, and it's the reason I managed to get it so cheap. You can see the dent where the boot lid bent in. The entire boot lid is broken. This rear light is still broken because at the time I couldn't find another light, and if you come around here, that is completely bent too. Also, I did the bumper cut where I cut the bottom half of the bumper off because I really like how it looks, but the bumper is in pretty bad condition. The paint is chipping up on the top here, so you might have seen in the background of some recent TDC videos, the bumper that we bought from Latham is mounted up here. Not only have we got a bump to do, we've also got to replace the boot lid, which there's something interesting that hasn't turned up in time, but I'll still talk about the spoiler, and another set of rear lights. So the whole rear end is going to look complete again. We might end up uncovering some damage behind there, because while I did bend the boot lid back and manage to get it straight in the video where we picked up the beat, I still reckon there's going to be lots of hidden damage behind there that we're going to fix in order to mount our new bumper. I'm going to tear it all down, we're going to have a look at how it all kind of sits. So I started by stripping all of the parts off the car that we were going to replace, and while doing so, I noticed that one of the rubber seals was red, which tells me that this car likely already had a bit of rear end damage when it was in Japan that was fixed up and resprayed years ago, so there's no need to worry about it being pristine. So with everything off that we need to get off, there are some things that we can see that are bent. First things first, this is where the bumper kind of mounts along the top ridge. If you look along the side, it is quite clearly bent along there in a different way. If it was all one angle, then I think it could be original, but he's kind of bent in here and then out here and then in here again. So I think that for sure is going to need some warming up, some bending back to fit our new bumper. So I'm going to heat it up with a little bit of heat, bring this back, give all of this a clean, obviously, and then I'm going to reinstall the new parts and just see how they fit together and see if things need adjusting and moving around, and then we'll go from there. After a completely needed cleanup where no one will ever be able to see, I installed the light and checked that it was working, and then broke out the blowtorch to gently heat up the metal, allowing it to move easily back towards where it wants to be. Right, I'm quite happy with the level that I've got that on. He looks a little bit more straight than he did before. We'll only find out once we put the bumper on whether or not it kind of fits nicely, so that's the next thing to do. But if you come and look at this one, we've got the same issue that we had on the front. You see here, there's clear, there's nothing there. Down on the original bumper, we've got the number plate lights. And in the UK, that is a legal requirement. You must have number plate lights for your car. And I like driving this car on the road. It's kind of my favorite daily I've ever had. So I need to make sure that it has the number plate lights. I'm gonna take that bumper off, take the number plate light housing off the old one, mark it up to the new one, drill some holes, mount it on there, and then we'll see what the bumper looks like. And after some more mastery of fiberglass work, I installed the number plate light and got the bumper offered up. But the news wasn't good. So I've tried to put the bumper in, and you can see that if I put him in there, he sits quite nicely, and he does on the other side. But when you kind of press him up to where he wants to sit on there, our holes are not lining up. So it might be that we are still quite far pushed in. So what I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna try heat this up again and pull the whole thing out, see if we can get a bit more kind of bumper support coming out. After another round of pulling, the holes lined up perfectly, and I was onto the final piece of the puzzle, a new boot lid. But immediately, I hit an issue. So after a long while of fiddling with this boot lid, I found that there is a bit of an issue. There is no lock in the new boot lid, which is fine for us because we want the lock from our old one so we can still use our original key. So I took the lock mechanism out of our old one, went to install it on the new one, and the lock doesn't fit anywhere near as close. It looks like the part that mounts to the lock has been bent and kind of broken on the new boot lid. Now, I could go ahead and hammer out and mess with that one a load, Or I could swap everything back over onto this, take the spoiler off the bottom of this one, which is what's broken and really not very nice on the side of here, and then heat up the side and see if we can bend the original boot lid back into a kind of a bit of a better shape. So it does sound like more work. The other thing is Latham's boot lid is actually quite rusty. So I'm gonna see if I can retain the original one. I'm gonna swap the spoiler over. Even though it's not the spoiler I want, what I really want is a backyard special spoiler. And I've been trying to order one since I bought the car and really struggling to get one out of Japan to the UK. So this spoiler is not kind of permanent anyway, but it still looks, I mean, you can see there, it just looks all kind of nasty. So what we'll do is we're gonna take this spoiler off, stick it on the car, see if we can smooth that bend out a little bit more bodywork. Please come down to Edwin's Body Shop if you need any bodywork done, and then swap over Latham's spoiler. Now also again, his spoiler is a different color, it's brighter. So the car is gonna look so ridiculously mismatched, but it's kind of funny. So I'm gonna put the lock back together as it was before, and then we'll stick it back on the car and see what it looks like. Lock reinstalled and the old spoiler removed, I tried my hand at some more bodywork, trying to heat up the boot lid and get it back into shape, which worked well enough for me to install the new spoiler and wrap up my exterior mods. Now the body kit is basically done. I will put the side skirts on, but I'm waiting for a riv nut gun. So we are on to the final upgrade for the Honda Beat, and they are brake discs and calipers. Now these might look tiny, but in reality they are a big upgrade because the Beat has by far the smallest brake disc I have ever seen. This is the upgrade disc, and look how much bigger it is. That is genuinely the size of a small plate. That's you having a snack off that. You're not having your dinner with that guy. And the moment I began the brake install, I ran into a problem which I have never encountered before. Now I've just been having a massive issue trying to get this caliper off. I managed to get the brake retaining screw out of this side fine, but it absolutely wouldn't come off. Now there's a space for where another screw would be there, but it was just completely flat and there wasn't really an edge to it. I gave it a hammer a few times and I could get the top to come off, but it was still stuck here. So I don't know if you can see here, at first I went to drill the whole thing out, and then I thought, let me just drill two little reliefs and see if I can get one of these in here. Managed to get it in there, and look, it will turn. That is a completely flat brake retaining screw. I've never seen that in my life, ever. I'm about to punch it off, because why would it be completely flat with no way of getting anything in there to undo it? And I drilled all three of those holes. Other than that, it would be completely flat. Baby brake disc off, I chucked the new one on, battled with a stuck brake line, and threw it all together, finishing off the Beat's second iteration. And here it is, done. But not done at all. It's quite far from done. But V2, round 2 is done. Yeah, the number plate, I've ordered a new smaller number plate to fit up the front. That will happen, don't worry, I'm not illegal. I have been driving this for a day or two now, and it is so much better. It might look kind of similar, but it is 10 times better. The coilovers, it now before, I mean, you've seen when this car was going around corners, it just kind of leans around. Now, really nice, stiff, but also kind of usable every day. And then the brakes. All the brakes are good.
You have brakes?
I have big brake kit.
Wow, do you know what? I sort of noticed them. I was like, maybe they're not the same, but
so those are, I believe they're from a Jazz. I need to confirm with Latham what they were.
From what?
Sorry?
From a what?
A Jazz.
No one has ever said to me, I've got a big brake kit from a Jazz.
You know what's also interesting? Because it's Honda, everything fits on everything. You can put NSX brakes on this, just straight on, straight up.
Just do an endo.
But it's got DS2500 pads on it.
Wow.
So when you get them up to temperature, I was doing some testing last night, you are doing endos. It's great. It's so good. The body kit, it's on the front. The colour match is...
I was going to say, it's
not great.
Nice.
It's not great. But it doesn't matter because I want to get rid of the red on this car altogether. I wanted to wrap it or paint it or do something because this, it can't stay like this. The only thing worse than red is multiple shades of red. Yeah. So that needs to get done. I also haven't fitted the side skirts because of this. Before I put the side skirts on, people who are into Japanese cars, you see that, you look at the fact that you have side skirts and you go, I could just not have rust by putting side skirts over this. I don't want to do that. I want to fix the rust first so it doesn't get any worse, then I'll put the Mugen side skirts on. But body-wise, it's better. Will, he has an ass.
He's so back with ass right now, but I have to comment on, your pipe has got smaller.
My pipe's much smaller.
It's much smaller.
And it's tough, it's tough to see. There's one reason that it's okay. I no longer need to drive with these, with headphones on. I mean, you've been in this car a few times.
It's very, very noisy.
It's really quite drony and bad. But that exhaust, 1,000 times better. You can just kind of cruise, off throttle, and it's fine. It doesn't make too much noise. And then when you want to get on it, it sounds cool. Also, when it gets warm, It's not pops and bangs, it's snap, crackles and pops. It just gives you a little like dum ding bong ding. Oh, so good.
Is he new?
He is, he's off Latham's other one. That one, like I said earlier, is not staying. I want the backyard special wing from Japan, but he's just impossible to find. I'm trying to find someone to help me import one, but still, it was supposed to be here for the video. Tried to order it 4 months ago. That will change. There'll be a little kind of NASCAR almost looking ducktail off the back. And then the wheels, I haven't put the wheels on because those are for the track wheels, because I don't want to do a track day in this. So it's on the road wheels at the moment. The T37s that I bought will go on at some point, but that will be in V3. There's always more to do.
How many versions will there be?
There'll be
Many,
lots of.
many
There'll be
versions.
lots. Have we written the script yet? Is it V6 where we get the bike engine?
Yes, yeah, that'll be in there
Yeah, that'll
somewhere.
be in there somewhere. That will come. If this engine ever goes, it's getting a bike engine. I know this thing is really tatty and really quite shit, but it is probably my favourite car I've ever owned. I love driving this thing more than anything, and I will continue to work on it and upgrade it. So I'm sure you'll see it again on this channel pretty soon when I fix even more things wrong with it. Click here if you want to see where Will rebuilt his engine on his Clio himself. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week.